FNaF 3. Remember when people thought this was the last game? Good times. Speaking of that, anyways, I find it pretty ironic how FNaF 3, despite it's supposed to have been the last game in the series and tied up all the loose ends, not only straight up didn't address some things like what the shadow animatronics are and who did the bite of 87, but also introduced a whole slew of new questions and discussions over everything from its phone calls to its minigame sprites. However, while these issues are certainly prevalent within the community nowadays, the one that I find the most interesting is the question of, when do the Follow Me minigames take place? You know, those end-of-night minigames where the animatronics are taken apart and William becomes Springtrap? Yeah, despite FNaF 3 being pretty old at this point, we still have no definitive answer as to when these minigames take place. While there is some discussion over the actual date, the more involved debate is whether these minigames take place before or after FNaF 1 in the timeline. There has been lots of evidence provided for both sides. However, today I want to go over all of the evidence for both sides of the argument, as well as provide my opinion on this issue and discuss why I feel this way, since I think this is a way more simple and easy to understand topic than most people think. With that out of the way, let's start with the evidence for both sides. Okay, so before this part, I just want to give a quick disclaimer that this segment of the video is going to be purely me listing out the evidence for both sides of this debate, and not me trying to debunk evidence from either side. Not only do I think that going over my stance on every piece of evidence would take way too long, but I also think that any of that should be saved for when I discuss my stance on this issue. With that said, let's start going over the evidence. For real this time. Starting with the evidence for the Follow Me minigames being before FNaF 1, we have the fact that the Foxy sprite in these minigames has all of its fabric, while in FNaF 1 he's missing a lot. This would imply that Foxy was originally supposed to be fixed like the others, but he was torn apart by William and the result was the Foxy we see in FNaF 1. Furthermore, think about William's motivation for tearing apart the animatronics. It's because he wants to destroy the evidence of his crimes. Those animatronics that he stuck the kids in so many years ago are still kicking, and are basically the last piece of evidence that William is guilty. So it would make sense that he would want to destroy the animatronics before they have a chance to be used as entertainers again. After all, what if blood and mucus start leaking from their eyes and mouths again? And that, combined with the fact that William was already suspected as the killer when the missing children's incident first happened, would create the perfect motivation for him to destroy the animatronics. Another big note is the designs of the animatronics. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy all have one key difference from their FNaF 1 designs. Freddy and Bonnie have a button on their bellies, Chica has no bib, and Foxy is all fixed up. According to people who believe the minigames take place pre-FNaF 1, this is because the animatronics in this location were going to debut with different designs. And by the way, I've seen a lot of people say that they don't believe that these designs are accurate to how the animatronics actually look. However, there are posters scattered throughout Fazbear's Sprite that show the animatronics, and they look identical to how they look in the minigames. So yes, these designs aren't actually accurate to how the animatronics look. Anyways, these are the three major pieces of evidence for the Follow Me minigames being before FNaF 1. There is some minor stuff like the tables not having any birthday supplies on them, implying the location isn't open yet, but the three I mentioned are the three main reasons for why some people believe that the minigames take place pre-FNaF 1. Now, let's go over the evidence for the minigames being after FNaF 1. The first major piece of evidence for this side of the argument is the state of the building. The FNaF 1 location is in absolute disrepair in this minigame, as evidenced by the raindrops and rats on the floor. This would imply that the location was shut down a while ago, which would place the minigames after FNaF 1. Additionally, while it's possible that the animatronic designs were different and then changed all before the events of FNaF 1, it would probably make more sense if the designs were changed after FNaF 1, as some kind of rebrand in an attempt to keep the restaurant alive. Next, we have to talk about William. People who believe the minigames take place post FNaF 1 argue that William's corpse wouldn't be able to just rot in the restaurant while it was open the entire time, and that something would happen eventually, which is definitely possible. Some other evidence includes there being empty heads in the parts and service area, which implies that these were stored here while the restaurant was operational before the events of the minigames, and thus needed spare heads and parts in case an animatronic broke down, and the fact that the bathrooms appear to be sealed off in the minigames, which wouldn't make sense for a location that's about to open. However, another big piece of evidence is the fact that William is able to destroy the animatronics with his bare hands. And before you say that this is just an inaccuracy from the minigame, the fact that the animatronic parts that we see in FNaF 3 are in mint condition with no signs of damage tells me that this is what actually happened. Now, obviously, brand new animatronics should not be this fragile, and even though the classic animatronics are just built from the withered animatronics, that shouldn't mean that they should be able to be ripped apart so easily. However, if the animatronics had already been performing for a while and had started decaying, then it would at least make some sense that they could be ripped apart by hand. Although, to be fair, it's possible that Fazbear Entertainment just cheaped out when making the animatronics. Now that I have stated all of the evidence I could think of for both sides of this argument, I want to tell you guys my opinion as well as try and back it up with some evidence. So, do I think that the FNaF 3 Follow Me minigames take place before or after FNaF 1? Well, in my personal, not factual opinion, I wholeheartedly believe that the FNaF 3 Follow Me minigames take place after FNaF 1. Okay, I know plenty of people are going to start yelling at their screens telling me that I'm ignoring evidence, but trust me, I've got some good reasons for thinking this way. Obviously, all of the evidence I stated earlier applies, but I want to go over the animatronics designs, as I actually completely understand why someone would want to look at the fact that the animatronics designs are different, and say that the minigames have to be before FNaF 1, because Fazbear Entertainment probably wanted to debut the characters with different designs. However, I do have an explanation as to how the characters could be changed after FNaF 1. But before I share it with you, I need to talk about the state of the pizzeria in FNaF 1. It's never explicitly stated in FNaF 1, but the location definitely seems to not be getting a lot of business. I mean, for crying out loud, there's paper all over the floor, random loose wires hanging out of the ceiling, Foxy's out of order and pretty damaged. Heck, even our own office has a bunch of clutter all over the place that no one ever bothered to clean up. And that's not even mentioning all of the dirt and grime that must be on the walls to give them that weird black stain effect. My point is that the FNaF 1 location clearly isn't doing well in terms of business. I don't think it's meant to be closed per se, but it's definitely in need of proper cleanup. And since we know that FNaF 1 takes place in 1993, and that the restaurant was open from 1988 to 1993, it means that the location most likely closed sometime in 1993, or the very start of 1994. Either way, I bring all of this up because I think that, in an attempt to try and save their restaurant, Fazbear Entertainment decided to do a bit of rebranding, changing up the designs of the animatronics, fixing up Foxy, and even creating some posters to go along with everything. However, this obviously didn't end up working. In fact, it's actually pretty likely Fazbear Entertainment lost a lot of money from all of this, so they were forced to shut down the location and leave it to rot, not even bothering to remove the animatronics. I know this explanation may seem a little bit contrived, but the rest of the evidence for the Follow Me minigames being after FNaF 1 is damning enough to the point where I think this explanation can work without seeming like too much of a stretch. Before we end off this video, I want to go over what my perspective of the narrative of these minigames is, just as a quick recap of everything I've talked about, as well as a bit more detailed explanation of everything. So, let's go over it. It's 1988, and Fazbear Entertainment is planning on opening a new Freddy's location, after their most recent one got shut down for a series of murders that happened at the premises, as well as a customer getting bitten by one of the animatronics. However, because money is tight, they're reusing the location of where the first Freddy's was, as well as its animatronics, just switching out the parts so that the designs are new. The location opened that same year, and business is doing okay. But people aren't very comfortable with bringing their kids to Fazbear establishments anymore after all of the tragedies that have taken place. Money is also still pretty tight, to the point where they can't even pay people to clean the restaurant or repair the animatronics. Things only get worse when one of their night guards dies on his last shift, only making people less willing to support the business. However, Fazbear Entertainment has one last idea up their sleeve, and so in 1993, they decided to launch a bit of a rebrand, fixing up and redesigning the animatronics, and even creating some posters for it. However, people still just weren't willing to put potentially themselves and their kids at risk, and so the location was shut down that year, with everything still inside, as Fazbear has no plans of continuing with opening Fazbear locations. William then breaks into the location, destroys the animatronics, gets spring-locked, and the events of FNaF 3 take place, with the old animatronics and posters being displayed around the Fazbear's Fright attraction. Thank you all so much for watching this video. It's been a while since I've done a FNaF theory video, and since I'm not exactly proud of that first one, I thought it was fitting to try my hand at a proper theory video. I also wanted to thank you guys so much for the support on the Cup of Tea EXE video, as that video was just a passion project of mine that I didn't expect to do well at all, yet Kappa himself ended up watching it, so I just wanted to say that I'm very grateful for the support. Anyways, with all of that said and done, I'm Supersonic, and I'll see you all next time.